I just wanted to do a quick video and kind of show you what I am dealing with today. So when I took this front panel off right here, I noticed that there were these two wires right here in my hand, and they didn't go to anything. They were just in the wall, not hooked up to anything. And so I kind of figured that the running lights on the front and on the sides weren't going to work. So I plugged the camper in and I tested it, and sure enough, they don't work. So what I did was, after a little investigating, I figured out that where the wires come in from the plug that plugs into the truck, there's a little box where all the wires go. Well, the wires were severed from the box. So what I did was, what I'm going to do, I haven't done it yet, is I'm going to solder a longer extension onto these wires right here and feed them back through. That way I can just put this directly back into the box, because obviously these are too short and they won't fit. I always recommend soldering wires because wire nuts tend to fail, and the soldering is just more permanent and, in my opinion, more reliable, because you don't want to have to open up your ceiling or open back up your walls in case a wire nut comes off and you can't get to the wire. So this is kind of just a safeguard so I don't have to do that. So I've actually done this first one already, and I'll show you guys how to solder the second one. So this is what it's going to look like right here. Here is my second piece, and I didn't have any of this type of wire just hanging out at my house, so I just clipped some wire from a different place in the camper. It doesn't really matter what kind of wire specifically it is, as long as it's around the same gauge. It can be a bigger wire, but it cannot be a smaller wire. So this one's just a little bit bigger, so it's really not a big deal. You're also going to want some heat shrink tubing. This is like, I don't know, $4 or $5 for an assortment pack at a Harbor Freight. So you're going to need some of that and some solder. This is, let's see, it's electrical solder, but it's 0.8 millimeter, and that is what I have found is the best solder to solder these smaller wires like this. There is some thicker stuff. So this is the thicker stuff you can buy at like a hardware store or something like that, but it really, it doesn't, it's too thick for the wire to heat up and for the solder to flow through freely. So I really like the thinner stuff because it just flows through so well. So first things first, you twist both ends of your wire. I've already done that. Get some heat shrink tubing and stick it on your wire and just kind of push it down. Let's see, move it forward a little bit. Okay, and then you get your wires, and I like to put them in a little crisscross like this and then twist them just like this. Next thing is to solder. So to do that, you get your soldering gun. This is another Harbor Freight purchase. You guys can't tell, I really like Harbor Freight. It's a 100-watt soldering gun. I kind of like the bigger ones because it just heats it up faster. So you basically just kind of put it in the middle. Give it a little time. You see I've got my solder ready, my little thing sticking out right there. You just kind of give it a few seconds. And it should start heating up, and you can kind of put your wire on the top of it to test it. able to tell pretty easily once it's hot enough, because the solder will just flow right through it and it's nice and beautiful. If you have thicker wires like this, it does take a little bit. I'm sure technically you could probably find a better soldering gun that heats it up faster, but this one's budget friendly for the amount of soldering that I do. Usually doesn't take that long, but must just be because I'm making a video. That's usually when things all go wrong. And then you just kind of run your solder along. Okay. Now, while it's still warm like this, sometimes you can get some jagged edges, so I kind of just like to get a pair of needle nose and squeeze it a little bit. That way any of those straggling stray wires kind of get down. I usually, if you're doing more than one wire, I usually like to stagger them. That way the joint is not right beside each other, because occasionally you can have, one little piece stick through, and it can touch the other wire. So I try to stagger the joints. So let me show you guys. You can see that. That is pretty much what it looks like after you solder it. One of my wires is kind of black and dirty, but it's okay. Not a big deal. Alright, and then you get your heat shrink tubing and you push it forward, kind of center it like that in the middle, and the little handheld lighters work really well for this. This is really too hot, but it'll just do it for a second. So you get some feet, and you just shrink it down, and that is pretty much it right there. So that is soldered. That is not coming apart. There's no jagged edges. So after that, I can feed this back through the wall and down through the floor, into the box, and then I'll solder this to, actually no, I don't think I need to solder that. It might just plug in. I don't know, we'll find out. This is new, so, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So, I feel like the electrical is almost my favorite part, because it's like a gigantic puzzle that you have to figure out. It's also very frustrating when something doesn't work. So that's why I always try to double check and make sure everything works before you put your ceilings in, before you put the walls back in that you've already taken out. Double check, get your meter, check to make sure it's got 12 volts, check to make sure it's got 120 volts. If you've got an outlet, plug something into it. Just always double check, because I have learned that the hard way several times. Anyway, I hope you guys found that helpful, and I hope you have a good Sunday. Bye.